Alright, I just want to talk a little bit about ethics with respect to naturalism. So pretty much what I would like to kind of talk about is when we're trying to argue or talk about ethical naturalism, what are we going to have to do? It's kind of a philosophical thought here as to what we're going to have to do given a possible theory of ethical naturalism. In most analytic thought, as most naturalist thought is analytic. Most of the stuff I've been talking about anyway. We have a few different areas within analytic philosophy that we're going to have to try to involve. We have to give a certain account of each kind of area. First we have ontology or metaphysics. I like to have a nice little boundary between ontology and metaphysics, but metaphysics pretty much is, what the contemporary analytic metaphysicians do. But there is a certain kind of group of or a certain area of ethics where we have to do some metaphysics. We have to give a account of metaphysics, especially if you're going to be, a realist or some kind of thing like that. And in all meta-ethics and possibly some normative ethics, we have to ask, what is your theory in ontology, realist, idealist, nihilist, anti-realist, whatever, and what is your theory in truth value? As to where, given your theory, is our ethical statement's possibility to be true or false? Is there a bivalence? Is there a bivalence there? Now, normally we would do that in philosophy of mathematics primarily, is to ask, like, well, given your theory of numbers, is our mathematical sentences about mathematical objects, are they bivalent? A mathematical intuitionist would say no, because they would go against that law of the excluded middle. Then we would have to say, well, and then also, what is your theory with respect to ontology? Is it realist, idealist, nihilist, whatever? Many would also say, well, mathematical objects or ethical senses or mathematical senses are linguistic are of linguistic makeup, and they are of no more than that. So really, we have this metaphysical ontological area that we have to do within ethics and naturalism too. Naturalism kind of has some that are realist and some that are not. Some that are realist and some that are relativist. The only theories that can't really be, totally naturalist is those that are emotive. Now, Adams, the book that I just read in this series, says otherwise, that emotivism can be naturalism, even though it's about personal identity and character and emotion. But that can be natural. It can be investigated scientifically, even though it's not ontologically realist or truth value realist. Coffee, sorry. That's kind of like a fence thing. It's kind of hard to think about. I mean, I don't know. That's kind of the thing I would like to talk about further, is emotivism and naturalism together. Secondly, actually we have this big metaphysical ontological thing here. So we have to, in any in any metaethical theory, or especially with naturalism, we have to give a account as to is morality and ethics objective, mind independent, or mind dependent. We have to figure that out. You have to give us some kind of a metaphysical or ontological, depending on how you want to call that. There's a weird kind of distinction of metaphysics and ontology. Metaphysics I would kind of like to reduce to like things about properties and particulars and tropes, and that kind of discipline that the metaphysicians do. And ontology, a theory about a theory of objects as to whether they are objectively real or not within a certain mathematical or ethical or some other kind of theory. Second, we have language. Within any metaethical theory, or especially a theory of naturalism, we have to account for what place does language have here. Is it our ethical statements and properties, are they mere linguistic structures, or are they, how big of a factor is language here? How much does it matter, and or does it? We have to kind of figure all that out. Language often does take a back seat in this stuff because it doesn't always matter. Well, language doesn't always matter, but in meaning of ethical statements, we have to use language. Like, where does language play a part as to the meaning of ethical statements? And we have to figure out, well, is there meaningfulness? Is there meaning? Or due to the nature of ethical statements, is there meaning, or is there meaninglessness? And are we unable to come to a meaning based upon language or based upon whatever? So language is kind of hard to figure out. Like, we have to kind of think about, mostly language in ethical theory is reduced to meaning. Meaning as to, do ethical statements have meaning, or are they meaningless? And then if you're going to be a linguistic nihilist, you're going to say, well, ethical statements are only reducible to the linguistic form and structure. Third, and very, very importantly, epistemology and theory of knowledge. Especially in the logical naturalism that I was talking about in the previous ethical naturalism video, we have to kind of figure out what can we know of ethical statements. Can we know enough to give a rational proof? Do we have enough to have validity conditions? Do we have enough knowledge of these things to take an ethical sentence and reduce it to an ought or an ought not of something, or something or other? We have to kind of figure all that out. So epistemology, we have to figure out as to, is it knowable? Is it knowable, and how knowable it is? Are these statements knowable enough that we can create rational proofs and justification and validity conditions of them, and find those things and figure them out? And if we're a realist, we have to figure out, well, even though they're objective, are they just knowable, or what? We have to. And if we're a relativist, we have to figure out, well, how relative are moral judgments and statements? So yeah, we have these three basic things that we have to kind of figure out. And then we have to figure out also, there is also a place for philosophy of mathematics too, as to correspond to the two numbers. And that's a lot of complicated things, which I would like to not get into. But so we have these three things that are all a part of a certain theory of metaethics, especially naturalism. We have to kind of figure out and pan out to have a full, theory, whether it's naturalistic or not.